Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. Today we are joined by John Hewko. John is the General Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. Rotary is based in Evanston and is a massive global organization whose mission is to see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and ourselves. We'll talk about this in the episode, but they were really instrumental in eradicating polio around the world and even helping to create the United Nations. So quite an impressive organization based here in Evanston, over 1.4 million members, over 46,000 clubs around the world. Now, John is incredibly impressive, and I'm so grateful to be able to interview him today. Just a little bit about his background. Prior to him leading Rotary, he was in charge of the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which was a U.S. government agency established in 2004 to deliver foreign assistance to the world's poorest countries. Really a very innovative organization that was part of the government. And prior to that, he was an international partner with the law firm Baker McKenzie, which we'll talk about. And he really specialized in international corporate transactions. He established the firm's Moscow office and then also helped establish the office in Kyiv in Ukraine during the fall of the Soviet Union and was instrumental in developing their constitution. It's really incredible to be able to speak with him, and I think we're all going to learn a lot from this conversation. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's a real honor to be able to speak with you. And, you know, I just mentioned to the audience just about your tremendous background. And it's really unbelievable that Rotary has somebody at your caliber helping to lead the realm here, the helm in this kind of time. But and it's very important. But what I want to talk about today is really I want to talk about Rotary. I want to talk about how it relates to the Skev, to Skokie and Evanston, and then more about the global. There's quite a bit going on, and that Rotary's involved in, that you're involved in. But before I do that, I do want to acknowledge what happened this past weekend here locally in the Chicagoland area in Highland Park. On July 4th, we had a horrible attack happen, and at the parade, something that you think would be unimaginable, but it continually happens here in America. And I just want to acknowledge the people that were victims of this terror, and hope and pray that this stops. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable that this happens. So I'm sure that everybody in the audience is grieving about this, and I just want to acknowledge that. But to now talk about, though, what's going on here locally in Rotary. So, John, if you could tell us a little bit about Rotary and what it does, and you know how big is it, and what types of projects does it work on?
Well, Rotary was founded in actually 1905 in Chicago by a gentleman named Paul Harris, and it was really the original LinkedIn, well before anybody had ever heard of LinkedIn. And Paul's vision was to sort of bring business leaders in the community together around clubs called Rotary clubs, and really initially to help each other network professionally. And that concept eventually wound up expanding to include community service. In fact, the Chicago Club's first public service project, in a way, was the putting public toilets in downtown Chicago. So there was the philanthropic piece of it. There's also the mercantile piece of it, in that many of the Rotarians own businesses downtown. So it was an incentive for people to stay downtown and shop, et cetera. And so really today, Rotary is an organization that's sort of I would like to call it the intersection between commerce and cause. So you join Rotary to meet great people, to sort of network professionally, but also to do good in your community, whether it be locally, regionally, or internationally. And so today we have over about 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. More than 70% of them are now outside the United States. And in fact, a lot of our growth is happening in places like Asia, Africa, parts of Eastern Europe. And the Rotarians are organized around what are called Rotary clubs. And they're called Rotary clubs because the original meetings of the Chicago Club, they would rotate the meetings among the offices of the various founding members. And so that's how it got to be called Rotary. So we have about 37,000 Rotary clubs around the world. Again, 1.2 million members. We're in about more than 200 countries and geographic locations. And here in Evanston, we have 3 clubs, and we also have a club in Skokie, close to 200 members if you add up the membership of the 4 Skokie Evanston clubs. And our world headquarters are here in Evanston on Sherman, Grove and Davis, and we've been here since 1950. So very proud to be in Evanston and to be part of this great community.
Oh, Evanston's lucky to have Rotary tremendously in many different ways. And it used to be on Ridge, and now it's in this building, like you said, Sherman and Grove. And if you go up there in that office, go up to the top floor, it's just the most amazing views that you can see I'd say in the Chicagoland area. It's really quite incredible. What brought Rotary to Evanston in the first place, though, if it started in Chicago?
Well, I think I think it was somewhat more convenient. I think we were able to, from a cost perspective, it was probably more affordable to be here, and it was a great move. We're glad we're here. We're glad we're part of the community. And I think one of the we were talking earlier about what Rotary, the kind of the community service piece of Rotary. Back in the sort of 1985, Rotary undertook its first significant large global project, and that is the eradication of polio. So it was really in 1985 that Rotary, a nonprofit, not a government agency or a multilateral institution or a Ministry of Health, decided we're going to eradicate a disease from the face of the earth. And in 1979, smallpox had been eradicated. So Rotary said, okay, we've proven you can eradicate a disease with smallpox. Let's see if we can do it with polio. And then in 1988, we were joined by the World Health Organization, CDC, UNICEF to establish the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. Since then, we've been joined by the Gates Foundation, Gavi, and really, it's probably one of the most successful public-private health partnerships in certainly in recent memory. The world had over 125 countries with polio. Back in 1985, when we started this effort. We're now down to just 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, where the wild polio virus is still circulating. We had about 350,000 cases of polio per year back then. We're now down to into the teens. And so we're on the brink of eradicating polio. And I think from an Evanston perspective, what's interesting is that when we do eradicate polio, and we will, a second disease ever to have been eradicated, human disease, it started right here in Evanston, right here in Evanston, where where this incredible global effort was sort of envisioned. And I think that's something I think all of us who are Evanston residents should be very, very, very proud of.
Incredibly proud of. That's amazing, just how so a local organization can grow to have such an impact around the world and save so many lives. That is just really heartwarming to know that. That's fantastic. And I know that in my club, in the Evanston Club, the home club, our mission is food security. So we have a project that we did to partner with C&W. They're a local grocery and ice cream place at Dodge and Church Street, and we opened up a food pantry to partner with them to open up a food pantry. And many different clubs have different missions. So it might be health, it might be something partnering with another club around the world. There's a lot that goes on here. So the Rotary International is one part, but then there's the Rotary Foundation, which helps fund these things. So are they the same, or they just work hand in hand?
Well, first of all, to your first point, Aaron, that's a great point. And the beauty of Rotary is that we have, as I said, 37,000 clubs around the world, and each club really has the opportunity to get involved in the kinds of projects that they're interested. There's some clubs like yours that decided to focus on sort of local food security. Other clubs that are very interested in participating in regional projects, and others that are very internationally focused. We have a club in San Diego that at any given time they have, over 20 international projects. They're working, a water well working on providing water in Malawi, or educating girls in Afghanistan, or partnering with clubs in Ukraine. So it's really the beauty of Rotary is that we're very local and yet global at the same time. And so you can do food security in Evanston, but you can also help eradicate polio and leave a legacy for mankind for as long as we inhabit this earth, and really everything in between. And so our activities, the Rotary Club activities, whether regional, local, or international, are funded either locally. I'm sure your club does a number of fundraisers where you raise funds locally and you spend them locally as you wish. But we also have the Rotary Foundation, as you mentioned. It's also headquartered in our building here in Evanston. And the foundation raises a little over $400 million a year from Rotarians and other sources from around the world. We spend about $150 million on polio every year. And the remaining amounts are sort of granted back to Rotary clubs around the world for projects really in 7 areas of focus: the environment, disease prevention treatment, maternal and child health, literacy, water and sanitation, peace and conflict resolution, and I've forgotten the community development, which is largely microfinance. And so it's really an incredible organization where if you want to be completely locally focused and raise money locally and spend it locally, you can do that. But then you also have access to this incredible amount of money from the Rotary Foundation to do even larger, bigger, scalable projects in those 7 areas that I mentioned.
$400 million is not chump change. That's quite a bit of fundraising there. And, you could just see the impact that this organization has, which is just incredible that what you're able to do with that. And I love that, these groups can choose to do what you want in terms of how you want to do your social service. For me, when I went to college, I got a degree in urban planning and a master's in urban planning with a focus on international development. And I ended up doing some different things throughout my career in real estate, but being involved in Rotary allows me to do international development here, but I mean, local, community development and connect with people around the world. Now, Rotary also has conventions, right? You just had one in Houston where you're able to meet with Rotarians from all around the world and network. Was that something that was envisioned when the organization started? I mean, does that just create so many more opportunities that you see happening?
Yeah, Rotary has an incredible sort of not only global reach, but in our DNA is this concept, as you mentioned, Aaron, of bringing people together, bridging continents, bridging communities, bringing people from different walks of life, from different cultures, from different countries, from different backgrounds together. And really this concept of building peace and goodwill among peoples is it's not a slogan for Rotarians. It's real. It's something that our organization lives every day. How? Well, we run one of the largest youth exchange programs in the world. Every year we send 8,000 or 9,000 students on long-term study programs throughout the world. It's not just France, US, or US to UK. It's Taiwan to Austria. It's Zimbabwe to Brazil. And so over the decades, there have been literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of young men and women who've had the opportunity to live and study for a school year abroad in a different culture, in a different country. I remember I was at a Rotary event in the Czech Republic a few years ago, and the youth exchange students who are there, it's high school students, were there. Each of them had to get up and do a speech, and you had students from Zimbabwe, from Taiwan getting up there and speaking perfect Czech or Slovak to the group. So it's really so we on that level we have a endowment over $100 million where we fund 50 master's degree students every year do a master's degree in peace and conflict studies in one of the 7 peace centers around the world that we have relationships with various universities around the world. If you look back historically, Rotarians were instrumental in helping establish the United Nations, for example. There were more than 40 Rotarians who participated in the various working groups in San Francisco in 1945 when the UN Charter was being drafted. UNESCO is a direct outgrowth of a resolution taken by a Rotary event in the UK calling for the creation of an organization such as UNESCO. And then, of course, we have what we call different interest groups within Rotary, whether it's from wine tasting to biking to golf to tennis, you name it. And these groups span the globe, and Rotarians from all around the world get together to participate in activities geared toward those interests. And then finally, as you mentioned, we have an annual convention every year somewhere around the world. We rotate every year. We have it in a different city. We'll gather generally anywhere from 25 to 45,000 Rotarians. This year was in Houston. It was our first in-person convention after a 2-year hiatus because of COVID. We had about 12,000 Rotarians, so small, very small by our standards. But again, as you mentioned there, it's a great opportunity for Rotarians from around the world to gather and meet other Rotarians and swap ideas, partner on projects, et cetera. So it's truly sort of an unmatched global platform for people wanting to network, wanting to get involved in their interests, to make a difference in their communities, to make a difference in the world. And it's all headquartered here in Evanston.
Right here. It's amazing.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our supporters. Moving day is a happy day, but how can you be sure all of your stuff will get to the new place in the same condition they left the old place? Upgrade your experience to First Class Moving and Storage. You'll get a team of professionals who treat all of your belongings with care and have the right tools to make the job go smoothly. They even offer a full packing service. Upgrade to First Class Moving and Storage. They're local and independently owned. For more info, visit the website at firstclassmovers.com. That's the number 1, stclassmovers.com.
Hi, I'm Aaron Masliansky, longtime Skokie and Evanston resident, host of Inside the Skev, and local real estate expert. As a community connector and realtor with Dreamtown Realty in downtown Evanston, I know firsthand what makes the Skev such an amazing place to live. When I'm helping my clients buy and sell properties inside of the Skev or out, I'm doing it with the best technology and support team behind me at Dreamtown. During the pandemic, I've been able to help my clients seamlessly stay on track with their home search. From immersive 3D Matterport tours, professional photos, to virtual open houses, my clients can find their homes safely and comfortably, and even from their couch. When you're ready to make a move, know that I'll be here to help. You can always find out more about me at skevinston.com/real estate. Again, that's skevinston.com/real estate, or email me at aaron@skevinston.com. I joined Rotary in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, and every meeting I've been on has been on Zoom, except for now we're starting to meet in person. And it's interesting to join an organization virtually and then start to actually meet most of your fellow members in person a couple of years after the whole process. But so I could just write a story on that. But I think what also it shows you is that you could also go to these meetings in any club around the world, as long as you know the language, and Zoom in, which I think is really incredible. So you can get to know what's going on. If you want to find out what's going on in Kenya, you could Zoom into their meeting. It's really just an incredible organization. Now, John, you have an incredible background. I mean, you have a law degree from Harvard. You helped create the Constitution for Ukraine. You've worked in various organizations for international development. What brought you to Rotary to be at the helm here? What inspired you for that?
Well, I've had sort of a very relatively eclectic, varied career. I started out as as you mentioned, I have a law degree. I started out as a lawyer, working for one of the largest, at that time was the largest law firm in the world, Baker McKenzie, headquartered in Chicago, and I did my whole career with that firm in Eastern Europe. I moved out to Moscow in late 1989 to help set up the firm's Moscow office. It was still the Soviet Union, and we were the first Western firm to be accredited in the Soviet Union. And then in 1991, moved to Ukraine to work for a year as a legal advisor to the Ukrainian Parliament. Again, it was the Soviet Union, and of course, the Soviet Union fell. We had the coup in August of 1991, and I was very much involved in all that, working in the parliament. And then I stayed on and opened our firm's office in Ukraine, was there for another 5 years, and then moved on to Prague, practiced law there for about 6 years, and had done well financially, but I always wanted to give back. I always wanted to, my parents came from Ukraine after the 1949, after the Second World War, and the country had been fantastic, opening its arms to us, and I wanted to give back. So we moved back to Washington, and I joined the George W. Bush the administration. They were establishing a new foreign assistance agency called the Millennium Challenge Corporation. It wasn't meant to compete with USAID, which is our primary vehicle for U.S. foreign assistance, but really was designed to deliver U.S. assistance in a very new and innovative way. And I was a political appointee, but I really enjoyed that job. I was sort of the chief U.S. negotiator for these various foreign assistance agreements we were entering into with the developing countries. And then when President Obama won the election in 2008, I became, as our friends across the pond like to say, redundant. And so it's like, okay, what do I do? And I had sort of been there, done that with law. I really enjoyed this kind of doing good that I had been doing at the Millennium Challenge Corporation in the Bush administration, and my father is very active Rotarian. He passed away a few years ago, but he was very active, and he was reading the Rotarian magazine one day, and he noticed there was an ad that Rotary was looking for a new general secretary. So he tore it out of the magazine and mailed it to me and said, "I think you should throw your hat in the ring. You probably have the ideal qualifications for this." Yeah. And so I said, "Oh, I wasn't even aware." Threw my hat into the ring, and kind of the rest is history. And so we moved here in July of 2011 from Washington to take this job at Rotary, and it's been absolutely terrific run for me and for my wife Marga.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a perfect kind of partnership with your background and heritage and everything, and now we are in 2022. I mean, you've had tremendous challenges to deal with, with the pandemic and everything else, and trying to lead an organization through that. And now what's going on in Ukraine certainly hits very close to home for you. So tell us about that. I mean, you've been very vocal about your support for Ukraine and the terrible things going on in the war there. Tell us about your response to that, and what has Rotary been doing in response?
Right. Well, again, on a personal level, Aaron, it's been very, very difficult for me. I still have a lot of family in Ukraine, obviously many friends, former colleagues, people that I worked with and continue to work with over the years. And we have a very active group of Rotarians in Ukraine. We have about over 1,100 Rotarians, more than 60 Rotary clubs in Ukraine. So it's very personal, and to really see this unprecedented destruction, the brutality of what Putin is doing in Ukraine is for me personally, and I suspect for most of the world, extraordinarily emotional and difficult to see. And this is where I'm extraordinarily proud of Rotary and the reaction that Rotarians around the world have had to this brutal, terrible, unprovoked war that Putin has unleashed on Ukraine. The war started on February 24th, and it was very shortly after that we established at the Rotary Foundation a disaster response fund for Ukraine. And really, in a matter of weeks, we raised more than $15 million for Ukraine from Rotarians around the world, and an unprecedented response by Rotarians in such a short period of time for a humanitarian tragedy and disaster as in terms of responding quickly, and that's just really sort of half of the picture. There's also been incredible bilateral work directly by Rotary clubs around the world and Rotarians dealing directly with Ukraine. So I suspect that over the last couple of months, we've sort of raised and or spent more than $30 million on relief efforts in Ukraine and in the surrounding countries where you're having most of the refugees. And this is where I think Rotary's strength comes in, because we're both local and global at the same time. Our Rotarians in Ukraine are local. They know exactly what the needs are, and yet they're able to tap into this extraordinary global network to help them. Similarly, our Rotarians in Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Czech Republic, Romania, Moldova, the Baltics, and other parts of Europe that are accepting and dealing refugees. They're local, they know what's needed, they're able to provide immediate local assistance, but yet tap into this vast global network to help them get the job done. So our response has been really tremendous. I'm extraordinarily proud of Rotary and Rotarians around the world, and again, it demonstrates what our great international platform can do when these sort of crises arise around the world.
Yeah, we're completely set up for being able to help people in that sense. Now, are there Rotary clubs in Russia?
There are Rotary clubs in Russia. We have a little over 1,000 Rotarians in Russia, and I think we have 60 some clubs there as well. And it's it's a difficult environment to operate in, and it's been a difficult environment to operate in. Certainly, right now, it's almost impossible to operate there, where you're faced with jail time if you even call this thing a war and not a limited or whatever it is, a limited military operation. So it's almost impossible to operate now. And it was becoming increasingly difficult to operate over the last few years as Putin started cracking down on nonprofits, particularly nonprofits that have foreign connections. And given that Rotary is headquartered in the U.S., that didn't help much. So it's pretty dormant right now. I think our Rotarians are just sort of laying low and just waiting for this crisis to pass.
For people who maybe are not as familiar with global affairs, they may not understand why this is such a important or big deal, I should say. What would you say to them? Like, why is the West supporting Ukraine to win this war so important in terms of everything that Rotary does? I mean, what kinds of effects does this have on everybody?
Well, again, we're an apolitical organization. We don't get involved in politics. We don't choose political sides in sort of political debates. But this is a humanitarian issue for our organization. We have certainly Ukraine. We've had 5 million refugees leave Ukraine. We have 7 million internally displaced people in Ukraine. So you have sort of 13, 14 million people on the move in a few short months. Sort of an unprecedented human and refugee crisis in Europe, certainly since the Second World War. And so it's a sort of right up Rotary's alley to step up and make a difference when there are people in need. We see that with our polio eradication efforts. We saw that when we had the tsunami in Sri Lanka. We saw that when we had the hurricane in the Bahamas. Throughout the world, whenever there are disasters, Rotary is ready to be there and to respond. I mean, we're not experts in first response, but what we do a very good job is perhaps in the sort of latter phases of rebuilding societies, bringing people together, because again, we have these deep local roots as part of a significant global organization. So again, we see in Ukraine how we were able to respond quickly and help. And there, it was really very much focused on assisting refugees, getting medical equipment, much needed supplies into Ukraine, and helping and assisting internally displaced people in Ukraine, which we're very, very well poised to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring the work that Rotary has done to help the Ukrainians and people around there to deal with this massive, massive crisis. Because I think many times people can feel powerless, and by being a part of Rotary and being able to make a difference in your community, whether it be local or global, I think can help make you feel like you're actually doing something that is making a good, positive change in a situation that may just seem so dire.
But I think also, Aaron, it demonstrates just Rotary as one example, and is the importance of civil society. Yes. And the importance of philanthropy. And this is, I think, where the United States as a country should be very proud of itself, and it really excels. If this whole culture of giving, of philanthropy is growing now globally, but it was for a while sort of almost uniquely American. And so Rotary is just really the tip of the iceberg of just extraordinary work that nonprofits and civil society do, not only here in the United States, but globally as well. And I think that U.S. model of civil society, of giving back, is starting to permeate in other parts of the world as well. Whereas if you look at Europe historically, it's really, the government takes care of everything. It's the government, and that's not been our culture here in the States. And so this idea of nonprofits and civil society playing a critical role in societies is really beginning to grow sort of exponentially now around the world, and we're seeing that impact with the Ukraine crisis and in other crises around the world. It's sort of the power and importance of people, of individuals, of civil society, and of philanthropy.
Yeah. One of the things that you look at, if what's going on in different parts of the world, especially here in America, you see a bifurcation of society where people just don't have the same shared experiences, or they maybe just feel very strongly in different respects on many different highly charged issues. And one of the things that could bring people together is to have shared experience through civic engagement. Do you think that it would be beneficial that there would be a requirement to engage in civic, service, and maybe where people have to go and, do work within Rotary or other types of organizations throughout the country?
I mean, that's a great point, Aaron. For me, there's no question that the many of these civic organizations, such as Rotary and many others, play a very valuable role in, again, bringing people together. I find very often when you do things together, it sort of tends to break down generational or other types of differences that you may have with whether it be share different experiences, et cetera. When you wind up doing something together for a shared common cause, it does make a difference. Whether you'd make it mandatory or not, I don't know, but I certainly do believe it should be highly encouraged. I think our educational system should at least pivot to really provide these sorts of opportunities. I think private industry, businesses need to step back and think, okay, how can we provide for more of these sorts of opportunities for our employees, not only as a retention, not only as a morale boosting thing, but as a way for society to, as you said, by having these shared experiences, doing things together, we sort of begin to bring down some of these barriers. So yes, I think it's something that's extremely valuable. Whether it should be obligatory or not, I don't know. That's a tougher call. But there certainly should be, really in the private sector, and there should be incentives for people to do that, encourage people to do it, because I think the benefit to society and to the individuals is quite strong.
Now, we've talked a lot about volunteering in these different organizations, but you're somebody who has made much of your career in service. What do you recommend to somebody who is, early on in their career or mid-career, and they're trying to think of, maybe I want to do something a little bit differently? How would you suggest that they get involved, and what would be the first steps?
Well, again, I think it's a function of what your interest is, and whether you want to make a career out of it, or whether it's something you want to do as a sideline to your profession. I personally took the tack of, let me first, and I was trained as a lawyer, let me first make my mark in the legal profession, let me gain some financial stability, because that is important. We do have lives to lead, families to raise, kids to get through college, etc. And then once I felt a certain level of financial stability, then go off and either do government service, which I did do, or go work for a nonprofit, which I'm currently doing. So that's the track I took. It was, in a sense, probably the safest track, because you're able to sort of branch into the doing good sphere when having sort of a reasonable financial platform to jump off of. But there are young people today. They want to make a difference. They want to give back. So you can either join a nonprofit right off the bat and sort of make that your career, and if not, I would certainly urge that as part of your sort of professional life, get involved with either with Rotary or similar types of organizations where you can, in your spare time and your free time, give back. And again, I think it's a pretty deep strain in America's DNA for people to give back, to contribute, to participate in these sorts of organizations outside their normal work hours. So it's very rewarding. It's very satisfying. I would certainly urge everyone to do that.
Yeah, and I would concur that I think it's very rewarding and very satisfying to be involved in organizations like Rotary. I've been lucky enough to get involved in several organizations that do good, and it really makes you feel like you're making a purpose for your life. It's fantastic. Now, if people want to learn more about Rotary, where should they go?
Well, we go to our website, www.rotary.org. Plenty of information about Rotary, both locally, regionally, and globally. There is something called a Club Finder, where you can see what's the clubs that are in your area, when the clubs meet. Some of our clubs are breakfast clubs. Some meet at lunchtime. Some meet in the evening. We also have what are now called e-clubs, and these are clubs that meet online, virtually online. And those clubs are quite interesting as well, because they tend to draw members from all over the world. And so some of these e-clubs will have members from 10, 15, 20 different countries. Some clubs meet every week. Some meet every other week. Some have hybrid formats where they'll meet in person and also meet virtually at the same time. Some have only in-person meetings now that we're out of COVID. So there's really different options for different people. As I said, there are three existing clubs in Evanston, one in Skokie, and then of course Rotary clubs in many of the surrounding towns here on the North Shore and throughout the Chicagoland area.
And certainly, if anybody has questions about the Evanston Club, I'm happy to answer them and bring you to a meeting. I think that we always have interesting speakers, and it's a great group of people that you can get to know here locally if you're here. But John, I am so appreciative that you took the time to meet with me and to speak with our audience here in Skokie and Evanston and beyond. And thank you for what you do.
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me, Aaron. I'm delighted that you're a Rotarian, and in fact, your club and one of the other Rotary clubs in town meet in our building. And yes. So you've hopefully had a chance to have a physical meeting in our building and get a chance to see it. As you mentioned,
yeah.
You mentioned you've been there. It's actually, and we're also trying to very much make the building much more available to the public. We have a great auditorium. We have great conference facilities in our building. Rotary operates in 9 different languages. We publish in 31 languages because we are such a global organization. So we have all of our conference space is designed for simultaneous interpretation. In fact, many of our board meetings and committee meetings that occur, we have, just like the United Nations, with the glass interpretation booths and all that. So we provide simultaneous interpretation for many of our Rotarians who come here from around the world to participate in meetings. We also offer tours of the building, a fair amount to see within our building. We have a lot of cool exhibits. So we encourage our members of the public to come and visit.
It's quite incredible. It's really, that's an understatement. It's beautiful. Well, John, thank you again. And thank you all for listening.
Thanks for having me.